Okay, so this video is going to be about why men don't like to commit. And why, well, really, it's about why both men and women don't like to commit. But first, let's get into why is men as commitment phobes or commit phobes the general narrative that you see and that you've seen for a long time. And we're going to get into all that crap, but it's because women only want to commit, quote unquote, when their SMV plummets due to old age and when they want to get off the cock carousel. And obviously I say commit in quotes because commitment for a woman means a completely different thing than it does for a man. Because as we know, women are double thinkers and they euphemize pretty much everything. Like every single word in the sentence that comes out of a woman's mouth is a substitute for something else. Like every single word in the average femoid sentence is a euphemism. So, and also part of the reason that women don't like to commit is because the women are wonderful narrative. Like the women are wonderful narrative, which is it's been scientifically proven, not that you really need science to prove this obvious truth, but women do get sort of a charisma bonus, if you will. Let's put it in video game terms, or just like a halo over their heads. And this blinds the average unthinking simian to the truth of alpha fucks beta bucks. So we assume that it's men, everything horrible that exists, we assume that, that's because of men, or men are to blame. And meanwhile, women have this halo over their heads that just doesn't go away regardless of what their behavior is. Any evil that they do is justified or is rationalized. Whereas even the best of things, even when a man is being good, or doing exactly what society tells him to, he's still somehow considered to be a horrible person. This is what women are wonderful essentially is. So yeah, women do not want to commit until the wall starts to loom and their SMV value, trade-in value, goes down. I made a video a while ago about how, and I'm sure I've re-uploaded it to BitChute at some point. It might have been the Leonardo DiCaprio video, but anyways, anytime a woman is born, and I spoke about this in that video, women are all born sitting on top of a golden egg, and that golden egg is basically their vagina. And most females, especially if they're in a liberal culture where they're allowed to live out their natural animal-like behavior, they will wait until the last minute to cash out on the value of that egg, because essentially that egg is rotting from birth up until, as she advances in age, it gets the quality of the egg goes down, right? And it's obviously the vagina is essentially, and the egg are essentially, her looks value, her SMV or whatever. So part of the problem is that women greatly overestimate their value because of simping, because of the ease with which they can get sex from Chad, because of alpha widowing. Look that up if you don't know what that means. I'm not going to get into that here. I have a lot of videos and a lot of content that goes into alpha widowing. Because even the pig woman can go on Tinder and get thousands upon thousands of matches because this is just how disproportionately valued the female is compared to the male. And they will overestimate their value until the value is all but gone, and until the only person who's really willing to buy that egg which is now rotten at this point, is a wage cuck who money maxed to compensate for his lack of SMV and his lack of looks, money, and status, basically. So this is essentially, what the whole alpha fucks beta bucks thing is about. Of course, alpha bucks, that could be a thing too, because a lot of alpha males who are Chad or whatever, they end up committing to these women, and then they end up actually decreasing their value by doing that. And I'm gonna get into that in a little bit, but yeah, this is I was thinking, on another note, I was thinking like, if I had a daughter, how would arranged marriage work? Would it, in a perfect world, I probably wouldn't mind it, having a daughter, because, I could see myself being more or less okay with handing my daughter off to a man that I consider to be worthy, but obviously this is not how things work. Even in the times where arranged marriages were a thing, and patriarchy was a thing, the man hands off his daughter to a man. Even, women were still women. Women are women regardless of the era. And that is why from even the most ancient times up until now, the great men of the world, or the actual thinking men of the world, hold women in very low regard. Even when arranged marriage was the norm, and even in places where arranged marriage is the norm now, women are still women. They are still whores. So, and this kind of goes into this whole idea I was talking about recently with somebody, which is that, like, conservative culture doesn't do anything. That's why, like, trad cucks are somebody, are like a kind of man that I don't take seriously. Christ cucks, like all these kinds of guys. They essentially, what they do is they give women a convenient mask to hide behind. So the woman, you got women re-virginizing these days, and like, this is like a classic story that I talk about from time to time, which is like this woman who was a total whore in her 20s, in her late teens or whatever, mid-teens, becomes religious and finds God, and all of a sudden she's a chaste, good girl and all that. Obviously she's doing that because she wants to try to recapture the value of chastity and purity and virginity, which she gave up a long time ago. But this is the kind of chameleons that women are, that they will actually try to fake virginity and stuff like that, and lie about their body count and all that in order to increase their value to men well after the fact. I was thinking about, I don't even believe in God. I kind of went into this in the metaphysical sense. I guess I kind of believe in it because other people believe in it and it influences their behavior. Like, I kind of went into that. But I mean, surely no God, no just God, no God that I would want to worship would allow the kinds of status quo, this kind of status quo to exist. And of course that kind of goes into a lot of the rebuttals from believers that you'll hear about this is, it's all in God's plans. He works in mysterious ways. Or they'll say, God gave us free will and we can do whatever we want. Or they'll say this isn't God's world. God's world is a spiritual world, and it's actually the devil who controls the material world. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, yeah, it's all bullshit to me. It's funny actually, because I was considering going to church this week specifically for the fact that I know that those women who go to church are the biggest whores. So I was thinking, you know what, if I want to get laid easily, maybe that's where I should be going. It's a clown world that we live in. I know that's like that's a redundant saying right now. It's like a trendy red pill whatever saying these days, but it's really true. And I've been essentially saying this for a very long time, for years now, especially since I kind of started reading that book by uh, Julius Evola, I think, called Ride the Tiger, and I kind of got familiar with that whole concept of just giving up on the modern world, which is a lost world. It is irredeemable at this point. And yeah, and just like just riding, just trying to enjoy it, I guess. Not necessarily in the hedonistic sense, but just kind of riding the wave until the whole thing crashes and burns. And what's really sad is that I know for a fact that the people who perpetuate this clown world, um, I don't know, do they know what's going on? They probably never will, right? They'll probably just die as oblivious to things now as always. And then what happens with the future generation? Will the future generation eventually wake up? You know, if the world ever is destroyed and rebuilt, what are the children gonna say? You know, like are they gonna be like, yeah, let's never do, this is what happens when we decided to become feminists and like started to embrace LGBT and like all this stupid shit that, you know, is just like clown world shit. Is the future generation gonna be like that? Like, are they gonna be able to look back on things and realize all the mistakes of the past? That kind of bothers me, because I feel like maybe that's not even gonna happen. You know, people are just gonna be oblivious to the seeds of destruction. You know, and what essentially made this whole society kind of collapse, and then history will repeat itself all over again, like it's cyclical. You know. Anyways, I kind of went off on a tangent there. Um. So, back to why men don't want to commit to women. First of all, it's Chad that doesn't want to commit to women. Those are the only men that women are concerned about committing to them. You know, even when she's in her 20s, that's who she wants to commit. When she's in her 50s, that's who she wants to commit. It's not like some regular guy. Like, there's plenty of those. There's plenty of regular guys that are willing to commit. But it's like the very fact that a man wants to commit, that's almost precisely what makes him low value. Is kind of what I was talking about in a previous video. Like a lot of these guys who dress nice and stuff like that, and like get muscle and all that stuff. It's really, the more they do that, the more they muscle max or money max or whatever, or fashion max or haircut max or whatever the fuck. The more they do that, the more they highlight their inferior genetics, the more they highlight their undesirable genetics. So it's almost like they're making themselves look worse in a way, actually. So yeah, that's essentially what commitment is like, because the man who women want does not want to commit, because women want him and he has so many options. So there's always a bigger Chad. You know, there's always a bigger Chad. When a woman does get a Chad to kind of commit, or whatever the case may be, he becomes the floor. You know, he becomes the floor. Like I always say, he becomes, in her mind, she thinks, okay, this is the worst I can do, so surely there's some better thing out there. And he knows that as soon as he gets comfortable, he becomes the easy and the boring option. He becomes like a kept man, and there's no more thrill, there's no chase, there's no allure, and there's no mystique anymore. And that's exactly what makes women not want the guy anymore, because a woman, basically, the guy who's attracted to a woman is basically the Genghis Khan type of guy, who's like the vagabond who goes around slaughtering people, or, you know, whatever the modern day equivalent of that would be. That's the guy that women want. But then when a woman actually locks a guy like that down, and I'm going to get into like the whole premise of locking a man down later, he becomes unattractive almost overnight, really, almost instantly. So that's why a lot of these chads, they just pump and dump. A lot of these chads are pretty red pilled, even if they don't know how to articulate their feelings. Women take things for granted, you know, and they're very oblivious So all you hear all this talk about the glass ceiling, but it's like the man becomes the floor, the top tier man that she locks down becomes the floor. So the floor is always rising for the woman. Even on Tinder, like you see these girls, they brag about. There's so many Tinder cliches at this point. It's really like every woman is a carbon copy of the other woman. It's actually like depressing in some way, to be honest, to me. But there's a lot of girls who have this sort of tagline in their Tinder profile. Whether you're in New York or you're in the South or you're in the Midwest, there's this fucking shit where they say, "I'm gonna ruin your life." Like, they actually brag about this. So it's not women are wonderful. Women are actually evil, and the very idea that this whole women are wonderful thing is a scientifically proven fact that people do, put sort of a halo over the woman's head. Meanwhile, for a woman, like the average female, especially the young females, like emotional abuse, gaslighting, like, the nice girl stuff that you see on the Reddit community called nice girls, that stuff is all sport for them. It's fun. Like, this is what they want to be. It's cool to them. Abortion, like Satan worship, witchcraft, and like this kind of stuff is all cool. Like, evil for a woman, Jezebel sort of behavior, it's cool to them. That's what they want to be. They want to be evil, and it's probably partially because their egos are so fragile, and at some point or another, they got pumped and dumped by a chat or whatever, so they just started hating everybody and becoming as evil as possible. That whore, Snooki, that was like a big deal back in the day from that TV show Jersey Shore. That's actually her exact story, almost verbatim. If I recall correctly, she basically said like, "Yeah, I got my heart broken, and then I started worshiping Satan." And like, there's a clip of her online where she basically said exactly those words. So that's what's going on with a lot of these females. All attention is good attention for them. Like they say, all publicity is good publicity. So it doesn't matter. Just like, be as evil and edgy and whatever as possible. Here's a short list of what commitment means for women versus what it means for men. And I just made this graphic real quick, but this is what it is. So for a man, you have endless nagging. She's always bitching and moaning about, you're always coming up short in some way for her. You have child support and alimony. No, I don't need to go into that here. Anybody watching this channel knows how much that system rapes men. Wage cucking and beta bucks. Because if she quote unquote wants to commit to you, that's essentially the reason she's committing. An ungrateful partner who's never satisfied with you and does not prioritize you because you were never her first choice, and it's really just your turn. So if you're committing to her, then she's really committing to you, quote unquote, just for money. And in terms of like sex and all that stuff and romance, if you ever fulfilled her at all, there's eventually going to come a point, it's probably going to come sooner than later, where you're in a dead bedroom. There's a whole Reddit community devoted to that, and yeah, eventually that point is always going to come, and she's going to want the Genghis Khan type man again, the unattainable man again. And women admit to this themselves constantly on social media, these little social media memes and all that stuff. You're only valued based on the utilities and the resources you provide. There's a Chris Rock bit that's somewhat popular in the manosphere communities, where he says a man is only loved under the condition that he provides something, whereas women and dogs and children are loved unconditionally. You can look that up if you want. Constant criticism from her friends and family who aren't even in the relationship, who are also single and miserable and have never had a successful relationship, and perhaps they almost want the relationship to fail because they're jealous. So when you're with a woman, not only does she nag you and criticize you constantly and make you feel like you're not good enough, even though you are, but everybody around her reinforces that. And as we all know, women are sheep, so everybody else's opinion kind of determines her opinion. You need to do more. You always need to do more. And again, finally, with this side, listen to the adjectives that are used to refer to a man when a woman gets him. He's trapped. He's locked. Women say, I want to trap a man. I want to lock a man down, etc. So he's basically a slave. He's in prison, And you can look at the that Jew shit, Kramer from Seinfeld. He has this whole thing where he's like, marriage is a prison. And that's another popular clip in manosphere communities. Now compare this to women. What does commitment mean for a woman? It means free money from a sperm donor / government. You're always the victim, and he's never doing enough. Romance-wise, he's not taking you out enough. He's not giving you enough financially, blah, blah, blah. You bring nothing to the table of substance, aside from vagina, obviously. What does that really amount to in the end? Is that really that valuable? No. You receive everything. The children are yours by default, obviously. You get the mommy halo, which is like, mothers are 10,000 times more worshipped in society than fathers. Fathers are just kind of seen like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's just the guy who lives with us, like. Even in my household, that's essentially how we treated my father. Like when I was a kid, that's essentially, and like I said, I remember specifically as a kid, even when I must have been like 6, 7 years old, I tried to show my father like the same level of affection because I saw how disproportionate the affection he received was versus the affection that my mother received. So, being a mom for a woman is all about getting freebies from society. It is as selfish an act as a female can commit, because and people act like it's selfless. So that's the bizarro clown world we live in. Because women benefit from having children. There's nothing but benefits practically. There's no daddy halo, endless support from other people, an excuse to stop wage cunting, which is if they ever did. Which a lot of these women, they never did that to begin with. Even if they do have a job, it's basically a do-nothing job. Maternity leave, way more mainstream than paternity leave. You basically get a man slave, you get men pay, and on the macro scale, you have men paying taxes to support your ilk, which is, the single mom who fucked Chad and like has Chad's bastard child. You get a child to indoctrinate. The children tend to favor their mothers. You get a child slave, essentially. Most teachers are women. That kind of connects to that as well. Most of the people who are indoctrinating the youth and so on. It's a resource. A child is a resource to a woman. They're help. Find me a single mom, especially like an older mom, who isn't constantly calling on their child for help. Fathers, in my experience, fathers are not like that at all. And that kind of goes into the Darwinian survival strategy of women, which I'm going to get into. Finally, if you cheat or leave him, it's his fault for not being good enough for you. No one cares about deadbeat moms. Females are not as useful as men, so no one really cares if a woman abandons her family. But if a man abandons his family, it's a big deal. So that's that. And yet women are considered the wonderful, committed, devoted sex. Even if that's true, the reasons that they're committed are clearly not selfless reasons. They clearly benefit from what essentially is quote-unquote commitment for them. And that's why a lot of people, they say, oh, women don't care about looks. Women, yeah, well, that's because they also care about attention and money. Again, it's all about Darwinian survival tactics for them. They can't survive on their own or sustain themselves, so they're constantly doing what they can to solicit attention, which will lead to money. In the modern day, this basically amounts to women going on Instagram and soliciting attention, but they also have like their Cash App profile and their premium Snapchats linked to their Instagram. So it's all about attention and money, which are really the same thing if you think about it. Publicity, like I said. We act like it's men who are superficial, and it's just clearly not the case. Not certainly not as much as women. Commitment. All of this is essentially why commitment is anti-female. It's not anti-male. It's women who are hypergamous to comical levels. It's them who are never satisfied. It's them who aren't considered to be responsible for romance or like taking you out on it, and all that stuff, taking you out on dates. That's them. That's all them. It's them who set the bar to like impossible highs and all that. And I'm making it something that's slightly related. So my mom was like, every so often my family, particularly my mother, will or like a sister or something, will reference me to a job or refer a job to me, and it's always like some job that I'm not trying to do. This time was like a government job, which I wouldn't be caught dead doing. And rather than actually get into a conversation with my mother about this and like argue about it, I know it's futile, because in my mother's mind, this is the ideal job for me because that's the kind of job she wants me to do. So, and this I kind of talked about something like this in a video about advice, why most people give bad advice, because when most people are giving advice, they're thinking about themselves rather than what's better for the person they're giving advice to. They're thinking about what would be better, what would I like this person to do, or what do I think would be better for this person? What would make me happier for this person to do? And so, yeah, like, it's not about you when most people, give you advice or refer you to something, or especially a parent. So ironically, like, I had a job that I pretty much liked in New York because I didn't have to I didn't have to have any human contact, but at the same time I got to be outside the whole day, and it was only a part-time job. So, but it was a pleb job, so no female in my life, whether it's a family member or like a love interest or whatever, would ever recommend me to do a job like that. They'll say things like, oh, you're better than that. But what they really mean, classic female projection, what they really mean when they say this is, I'm better than that. Any man who is associated with me should not be working a job that I would consider to be low class. And the job wasn't low class at all. It was a pretty decent wage. But this is the kind of echo chamber that women live in. Meanwhile, women are basically bums, and do nothing all day. That I don't think I've ever met a female below the age of like 40 who could really be of use to a household. And didn't spend like half the day sleeping. I don't think I've ever met a female below the age of 40 who was like that. So it's like as long as they're below that age, or below maybe even 35, 30 or something, as long as they're below that threshold where their vagina is like the only thing that they need to bring to the table, they're not interested in developing any actual skills. So it's like, if you're going to be a provider for such a female, you might as well just be a John. If you're going to be a provider for a female who only brings vagina to the table, you might as well just go to a prostitute. So it's like, I won't even be a beta buck for myself. So I don't understand why any female would ever have the audacity to think that guys like me should provide for them, especially in a post-feminist culture where women are supposedly so independent and can provide for themselves.